So the next thing I'm going to talk about is your visual cues. Because here's a fact. Let's say that on your desk or on your living room table, you have a bowl full of cookies. Chances are very big that you will be eating cookies. Whereas at the same time, if you had a bowl of fruit instead, chances are you're going to be eating way more fruit than you do right now. And so that's the thing. Have you ever had this experience when you're in the supermarket and you didn't know you were hungry? You didn't know you were peckish. But then you saw the ice cream section over there. You saw the candy section. And suddenly you look in your cart and it's like, oh my God, I loaded all of this unhealthy food. And so the signal, the cue of even seeing the unhealthy food, that creates the craving for it. And so what you want to do is twofold. On one hand, in order to get rid of your negative habits, it is to make sure that these cues are not widely in your sight. Meaning, if you have the bowl of cookies, for example, on the table, put that bowl away, put it in a cupboard, close it, and preferably just put a lock on it, right? Get it as far out of your sight as possible, and preferably make sure that it's not even in the house. With bad habits, you want to remove the visual and other cues from your environment, and preferably remove the thing itself as well. Make it more difficult to do. For your good habits, what you want to do is you want to make them visible. So for example, if you want to read more, make sure you place your book on the chair that you usually sit in. Place it on top of the remote if you don't want to watch Netflix, but rather read. Your gym clothing. If every day after work you have the routine of just going towards the table, put your gym clothing there on the table, right? Have visual cues set up in place to remind yourself of the habits that you want in your life, and you will be so much more effective at building these habits into your own life. And so for cues, some other ideas would be post-it notes. For example, I got one on basically every door. And that for me is a reminder of, hey, mind your body language. Walk up straight, sit up straight, whatever it is. Just whenever I see that post-it note, which is just blank by the way, I'm like, okay, check my posture. Make sure that I'm sitting up straight and I have this open, confident body language. And that in turn has programmed me to do that whenever I walk through any door. And so that's an example. Another thing that I have is I have alarms randomly on my phone of reminding me I do something productive right now. That can be a cue for you as well. On top of that, you can have like a post-it note on your computer or your mirror with some of the things that you want to be doing. So be loving today. Do the right thing. Get to work, right? Those can be cues that help remind you of the good habits and values that you want to encompass and have in your life. And to take it one step further, with building new habits, make it as easy as possible. So like I shared with you with the example of making the cookie jar just invisible and as far out of sight as possible. Do the opposite with your good habits. If your gym clothing is somewhere in the attic, in a cupboard, behind 3 drawers, that's a lot of steps to take. If it's right there hanging on the front door or the living room door, then it's way easier. And so to give you one example of this, back in the day, like maybe 8 or 10 years ago now, I was working in a brewery. And we had these huge pallets, like taller than I am, full of packaging materials. But sometimes after a certain order was done, there would be like maybe 20 or 30% left. And so those materials would be used the next batch. And so we were supposed to always start with the pallet that was already like halfway down, right? Rather than taking the full pallets. And so at our job, usually it was like shifts of who puts all of the materials ready for use. So there was a certain place where all the materials were lined up, and then people could take the pallets that they needed to use. And so what I found was that all of my colleagues would always go for the full pallets first, because it was less work. And so in order to stimulate the good habit of taking the empty pallets basically first, was what I did when it was my turn to put all the materials in place, is I would take the full pallets and I would put them all the way in the back. And then in front of them, I would put the the half pallets basically. And so, like clockwork, my coworkers would go for the half pallets first because it was easier. Because if they wanted to get the full pallet in the back, they would have to take the half pallet, put it to the side, then take the little cart for moving them, take out the full pallet, put it aside, then take the half pallet back again, put it back to where it was supposed to be, and then they could take the full pallet away. And so I created friction for the things that people shouldn't be doing, while at the same time making it easier to do the right thing. And so for you, maybe it comes down to just taking out a piece of paper and a pen to brainstorm some ideas of how you can make your desired actions, your desired habits easier to do, easier to start with, and easier to accomplish. And as you do that, with every barrier you just knock out of the way, you make it more likely that you're gonna get the new habit and stick with it. If you want to watch the full video that this clip has been from, go ahead, click over there, and click over there on that side to subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss new uploads that will take your life to that next level.